Hey everybody, HistorySoldier here again, and today I'm going to be going over another nation that was involved in World War I. Now, this nation is another country that's not really much during World War One. Sorry about that, because when you think about World War One, you think France, Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire, the USA, yeah. And the country I'm going to be going over today is Brazil. Now, here's a little bit more context on World War I. World War I was a 4-year conflict that involved 32 countries. They were fighting in the Pacific and the Atlantic. They were fighting in Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and the Balkans. It involved 2 combatant groups. The Entente, which is made up, of Russia, Belgium, Canada, France, Serbia, Italy, United States, and many others, against the Central Powers on the right, which was Germany, Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, and Austria-Hungary. Now, there were many other countries involved in the war, but they had different approaches, if I might say. There was militarily and just decided, just to trade like, hey, I'll supply you with oil, or I'll supply you with food, again. And there was some that did declare war and wanted to send troops, but couldn't fight because the war was coming to a close. And there was some that did declare war militarily and were involved, but weren't involved enough to make a difference before the war ended, because they entered late. Because by the time it was like late 1917 and late 1918, the war was coming to a close. And today we're going to be talking about Brazil. Here's a little bit of info about Brazil. It's the largest country and the largest republic in South America. It's a member of the ABC countries, or nations, which are Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. Its largest exports are coffee, latex, and other agricultural products. And its economy is dominated by agriculture and had very limited manufacturing due to the lack of factories. And it's just dominated by agriculture because that's how their economy has been for about 100 years, I think. About 1918, during the war period, was led by President, sorry if I'm butchering this name, President Venezuela Braz. He was president from November 15th of 1914 to November 15th, 1918, exactly 4 years. In the left, this is a picture of him. And on the right, this is a picture of him in the center right here, with his cabinet in 1915 at the time. There was actually a new president elected in 1917 and 1918, but he actually died before he can actually take the position. So he had to be the acting president until a new person could be, appointed for the position. Now, let's talk about a little bit more about how they were, before they declared war in 1917. They declared neutrality on August 4th, 1914, but they immediately started to face economic and social problems. This was a result because their trade was mainly coffee. It was actually 50% coffee, their exports were, because, a lot of countries were switching from, were starting to fuel their consumers with coffee at this time. It was becoming more popular. So Brazil was like a large exporter of that. But when the war broke out, they lost many big customers, such as Britain, Germany, Russia, Belgium, France, just any European nation over there. And even if they were going to trade with a neutral nation that's in Europe, like Luxembourg or Netherlands like that, or Spain, they couldn't, because the Germans had a blockade of Allied ports, and they were willing to sink any ship that breached their blockade. And this meant Brazil didn't want to risk losing any of their ships, or even trying to, test the Germans at this point. So this made shipping really hard. And the British made it harder when when the cost of merchant ships being sunk because of German U-boats, they banned the importation of coffee to England in 1917 because they thought instead of putting coffee on board, they could put more important and vital goods on the cargo space. Because, as I said, they lost a lot of ships and they needed the space for more important goods, such as food, weapons, and many other things. This lack of trade started to make their government income start to decrease as the war continued. There's actually a chart. I wasn't able to actually insert the chart because there was some type of copyright thing. From 1914 to 1917, you can actually see their trade and the government income go down after a while. And that was a result of the British ban and the German blockade as the war continued. It then started to get physical when on May 3rd in 1916, a Brazilian merchant ship, the Rio Bronco, was sunk by a German U-boat. I believe it was off the coast of France, or it was somewhere in European waters. But the reason the Brazilian government didn't declare war or, tell Germany to stop was because the ship may have been theirs, but it was registered under the British flag, and the crew was mainly Norwegian, not Brazilian. So the Brazilian government didn't really say, hey, you attacked this. They're pretty much just like, okay, it doesn't really matter. But it did cause an uproar in Brazil, though. I couldn't find a picture of the Rio Bronco, sadly. Now, this is one thing that's really known. Any ship that they thought was going to trade with the Allies or breach their blockade, they used hostile force. And the biggest example of this was the Lusitania in 1915, I believe. And this really started to make a lot of countries who were trading, countries such as the US, Brazil, it just started to really, 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 and pardon my French, it started to really piss them off. And this may have actually been Germany's death warrant because this actually led to many countries, such as the United States, joining the war, which led to their defeat in 1918. But yeah, this unrestricted submarine warfare started to shake their relationship with Germany quite a bit. And it actually reached a boiling point when on April 5th, 1917, a large Brazilian merchant ship called the Piranha, sorry if I'm butchering that, was on its way to ship coffee to, neutral nations who wanted to trade with it. It was torpedoed by a German submarine or U-boat, and it sunk, killing 3 Brazilians. And this actually sparked protests across the country and the capital, and the following happened. The Minister of Foreign Relations, Laurel Muller, sorry if I'm butchering that again, it's supposed to be German, I think, he had a pro-neutrality position, and he was a citizen of Brazil that was of German origin. He was forced to resign from his post after it happened due to the protests. And protests started popping up around the country, such as Porto Alegre and Petrópolis. Sorry if I'm butchering those names again. They looted, torched, just destroyed or almost destroyed many German-owned properties or shops and factories. And this violence would continue until October. There was other protesters, though, but they were, instead of being pro-war, they were anti-militarist and anti-war protests. And these guys were pretty much saying, hey, no, we don't need to be in war right now. They were actually accusing the government, saying, hey, you're trying to make us go to war so you can not focus on these problems that are happening in Brazil itself, like the internal problems. And these were people such as the trade unionists, anarchists, and the pacifists. And these groups even clashed with, the pro-war protesters as well. And as a fact, when the Declaration of War was issued in October, the government took it as an opportunity to prosecute and arrest opponents such as the trade unionists, anarchists, and pacifists, people who didn't want war. This led to consequences. A couple days after the Piranha was sunk, on April 11th, Brazil broke off diplomatic relations with Germany. On May 20th, the ship The Brazilian ship, the Tijuca, was, sorry if I'm butchering that again, I'm really horrible at Brazilian. It was sunk by the French coast, and this made the Brazilian government go, oh, you're going to sink our ships, huh? So they took every German ship that was merchant in their ports, and they seized them. And on July 27th, the steamer Lapa Brazil was hit by 3 torpedoes from a German submarine. On October 3rd, a Brazilian freighter called the Macau was torpedoed off the course of Spain. The captain was taken prisoner. And finally, on October 26th, Brazil declared war on the Central Powers, but it had limited popular support at home. And on November 4th, the Ikari and another ship, the Gaba, sorry if I'm butchering that, like I said, was torpedoed by the same German submarine. Well, that concludes my video for part 1. I will do a part 2 video soon on how they actually did prep for the war and actually how they got involved and how they were involved. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, feel free to like it. If you have any questions or anything you want to tell me, leave it down in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. HistorySoldier out.